Hey guys, welcome back to The Oldest Magic. It's been a while since I made one of these videos, and I'm really kind of looking forward to getting back on camera and talking about things that I'm passionate about. So in this video, I wanted to kind of talk about adventure, the concept of adventure and how it pertains to storytelling and also the concept of romance. But yeah, so this notion of adventure and storytelling and romance, I think these are three key concepts that are extremely powerful and they're extremely precious to the human soul. And so I kind of want to discuss them and how I think they motivate us consciously and unconsciously. So when people talk about adventure, what exactly do they mean? And I think there's a common misconception, right? That adventure simply means variety. Go here, go to this exotic location, go there. Like when you watch an adventure film, right? It's all these exotic, glamorous locations and exotic, glamorous experiences that take place in these locations. And I'm not saying that can't be a part of adventure, of course, because I think variety is the spice of life for a reason, right? But I think adventure is so much more than that. So rather than variety, I think adventure is about the breadth of experience. It's about depth, it's about richness, of which variety is only kind of a small part when you think about it, when you step back and you think about it, right? As opposed to simple variety, which can be kind of shallow and lacking in depth, I think breadth of experience is about richness and it's about personalized perception, personalized experience. So what do I mean by that? I mean, I think all human beings, we move through the world with this feeling of we do not want to be easily interchangeable, right? We do not want to be easily replaceable. And furthermore, we don't want our experiences to be easily interchangeable or easily replaceable with other people's. It's a dichotomy of human existence that we sort of want to fit in. We want to be a successful member of the herd. We don't want to be the nail that stands above all the others in case we get bashed in the skull, right? By the bad guys. But we also want to be unique and we also want to manifest and express our uniqueness. And I think if we're wise souls and if we're kind souls, we want to champion that uniqueness and that personalized expression of life in other people too. As this pertains to romance, of course, it's just look at the stories we tell about adventure and romance, right? It's these grand sweeping quests. It's these exotic experiences, and exotic is very personalized. Do you know what I mean? What is exotic to one person is everyday normality to another. So even the term exotic or grand or sweeping has a very kind of granular specificity, if we're going to be honest, if we're going to dig deep into what that means in terms of perception and experience for individual people. As it pertains to romance, I think we're talking about fidelity here, we're talking about fidelity of experience and fidelity of meaning. And I think that's what breadth of perception and breadth of experience really means. It's when we go on an adventure, we want fidelity of meaning. We want a form of meaning that is grand enough to seem almost mythic, but also intimate enough to be deeply personal. And we're trying to skirt that line. We're trying to dance with that edge or that threshold. And I think that's what we do. That's what human beings do at their very best. That's what we're always trying to seek in friendships, in sex, in really intimate emotional moments. We're trying to dance with polarized extremes or two opposite ends of the spectrum. In romance, for example, we're trying to be strong and sweet. We're trying to be wise and wild. We're trying to be passionate and tender, all at the same time, or if not at the same time, in a kind of rhythm that is conducive to whatever activity. In sex, it's obviously a very intimate and passionate personal encounter. All these things are about harmony and about walking that threshold between the grandeur and the intimate, the personal and the mythic. And fidelity is a big part of that. For example, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not knocking anyone who enjoys variety of experience, like sexual variety, for example. That's not the kind of life that I choose to live or I want to live. I want more fidelity than that. I want the people in my life to mean more to me than an interchangeable cog in a machine. You know what I mean? And I think our appetite for adventure and our appetite for romance is kind of speaking to the same thing. It's like, we want fidelity of experience. We want that meaning to be kind of sacred in some way. We want a promise to matter. We want a quest to be fulfilled come hell or high water, right? Because without the lows, the highs aren't as high. And and I think that concept of fidelity is sort of powerful. It's extremely powerful. Ultimately, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, we don't want to feel like we can be swapped out for another guy or another girl, right? We don't want to feel like our trip to Paris can be swapped out for anybody else's trip to Paris. Even though we might visit all the same tourist spots and we might engage in the same activities, we want that to be personalized to us, you know? And that sense of adventure, you know, stepping forth into an unknown, we want that to have fidelity, specificity, breadth, depth, dimension, you know what I mean? And that's because we are narrative beings. We are creatures made of stories that love to tell stories. And it's through stories that we define ourselves. It's through stories that we grow. You know, it's through stories that we are able to create and maintain loving relationships and loving friendships. So this concept of like fidelity, you know, like not cheating on yourself or not cheating on the person that you love, I think that comes down to narrative fidelity. And I think this concept of fidelity, adventure, romance, it's about living life from the inside out versus the outside in. You know, we live in a very, very shallow culture in which surfaces and images within images and surfaces within images within samples, you know, like songs are often remakes of remakes of remakes that contain samples of other songs that have been sampled. And you've got this kind of patchwork of artistic visions that have become sort of curated and algorithmically optimized, right? And it's kind of a sad thing if our romantic lives and our spiritual lives kind of fall prey to those same habits. You know, we want something bigger than that. We want something more mythic than that. We want something more intimate than that. And we want something more sacred than that, I think. You know, our favorite stories, you know, the stories that move us, you know, the romance stories that like really touch us, the adventure stories that really touch us, you know, the people who defy the odds and go on to achieve the things that they want to achieve. These things move us because they're about fidelity of meaning. They're about storytelling as it pertains to the human soul and the natural rhythm of a human life. And I think men and women, you know, like we might look at fidelity in different ways, but it's like we need to come to some sort of like mutual understanding with regards to romance, adventure, storytelling. We need to see ourselves in the other people. It's like, I often think that, like, you know, human beings, we are living in a society which has encouraged us to become the most toxic version of ourselves. And it can be a kind of sort of like grotesque shadow play that we're engaged in. You know, it's like we do not understand that different people have different hormonal profiles. You know what I mean? Like testosterone isn't bad. Estrogen isn't bad. The human body needs both in, you know, in different measures. How you identify isn't bad. You know, if you choose to be binary or non-binary, that isn't bad. These are just choices made by intelligent, nuanced human beings who are making different choices for different reasons in the adventure of their lives, right? And what they're seeking is fidelity, right? Meaning that is sacred and personalized to them. They do not want to be interchangeable. I know you listening to this do not want to be interchangeable. You don't want to be just completely meaninglessly interchangeable with, you know, your lovers or your friends. No, you want them to recognize you as you know, good and bad. Hopefully more good than bad, right? When we're talking about adventure, or we're talking about like masculine or feminine perspectives on adventure or on the quest for meaning, it's like we approach these things slightly differently, but there is such great wisdom to be found in the way the supposed other tackles fidelity, tackles meaning, tackles adventure, and we can learn so much from anyone that we see as other or separate from ourselves. I mean, I think that's the great quest of like human perception, right? Is to self-actualize and to become more than we are, but also, to spread a little love, spread a little joy. And you can't really do that if you're always holding the other at a distance and saying, no, all of this is separate from me. Like your choices are bafflingly incomprehensible. Your viewpoints are bafflingly incomprehensible. The way that you seek meaning means nothing to me. It's like, it's a very cold, harsh way to live. And I don't think we can gain much wisdom from that. So I'm saying all of this to say that, like, richness is not variety of experience. You know what I mean? Like, I would suggest that, men really, they need to study women, how women think of fidelity, what it means to a woman, for their partner to be faithful to them, what it means for a woman to be taken seriously at work, what it means for a woman to go on a girls' trip to Bali or to, the rainforest. Like, how does a woman push herself and self-actualize and kind of get outside of her comfort zone? And how does she organize that understanding so that it has maximum fidelity and personalized richness for her? I think there is a lot for men to be gained at looking at these kinds of things. And conversely, for women, looking at how men tackle these subjects, because we are living in a culture that is so dysfunctional and so, self-hating and so repressed that we are sort of encouraged to look at like anyone that we see as other as the enemy, right? And we're not enemies, we're not natural enemies. Like, we're biologically and psychologically and emotionally designed to complement each other and to need each other and to uplift each other. You know what I mean? So like, what I'm trying to say is like, richness is not variety, like, I am not bashing anyone who wants to have multiple sexual partners, of course. Go do you, right? As long as you're not hurting anyone, and as long as everyone involved, is not being like emotionally devastated by your actions, do whatever the fuck you want. You know what I mean? But for me personally, variety is not richness, and it's not the sexiest form of adventure or quest or the way to live a mythic life. But that's just my personal, like, I am way more fucking interested in artistic companionship and artistic richness and depth and, connecting with human souls. And, I want to see people's imagination. I want to dance with people's imagination. That's richness, I want to have encounters with friends and lovers and, family members that are unique to them, and unique to me, so that like when I go to bed at night, I'm lying there and I'm thinking, man, that was a fucking satisfying experience. I got to say this, or they got to tell me this, or we got to share this together, and they were empowered, or I was empowered, or I learned something from them, or they learned something from me. Like, I'm speaking very broadly, but these things matter. The sum total of a life matters. The fidelity of experience matters. So I guess ultimately what this comes down to is, curating your life versus cultivating your life, right? Like, we are so algorithmically optimized and we are so encouraged to curate everything from the outside in, surfaces, images, the correct playlist at this time, like we don't know how to be alone with ourselves. We don't know how to organically express ourselves from the inside out, or at least we're encouraged to see it the other way around, right? Because people can sell you more shit. They can get you all insecure. They can play off your insecurities when you're living life from the outside in. It's far easier to make a buck off a rube, right? It's far easier to get someone unsuspecting and kind of like mind fuck them to get them to do what you want. But when people are living from the inside out, that's true adventure to me. That's true romance. That's true storytelling. That's true fidelity, because it's like, well, I can go take a walk in the park and that can be the greatest adventure, of my day or of my week if I choose to see it that way. And, I act in a way that is personal to me, unique to me, and has an authenticity about it. And no one's going to know what that is except you, right? No one's going to know your friends the way you know them. And like, no one's going to know your friends in those particular circumstances the way you do, especially when you share things that are very personal, to you or them. And so this is what I'm talking about. It's like specificity, granular detail, the subtleties and the joys of like meaningful interaction, meaningful storytelling, meaningful adventure, meaningful quests. The mythic doesn't mean fucking shit if it can't be connected to or contrasted by the intimate. This is all to say, like, if you want to be romantic, if you want to be adventurous, I think at the center, at the heart of your experience, there needs to be some form of fidelity. Like, take your lover seriously, take your friend seriously. If you make a promise, do everything you can to keep that promise. Otherwise, don't make it. If your idea of freedom is like, no responsibility and no attachments to anyone, whether that's sexually or romantically or emotionally, however you choose to define it, that's a perfectly valid choice to make for yourself, as long as you don't hurt anyone. But I think you'll find, sooner rather than later, often that like it's kind of empty, because we need the dance of other human beings. We need the communion of like other souls influencing our sense of perception and our sense of experience to really even know what fidelity is, personal fidelity, like the sacredness of human experience. So yeah, adventure is a beautiful thing. And I would suggest that, you can seek it and you can find it at any age, at any point in your life. But an awareness of these kinds of components that I've been talking about in this video, I think will stand you in good stead. It'll be a very valuable thing to sort of keep in mind. Live passionately, guys. Seek meaning, seek fidelity, however and whatever that means to you personally. And I wish you all the best. And I'll speak to you guys soon. Peace.